Hello, I'm smoking some pure marijuana. It's top shelf. I am now going to, on a whim, this is not scripted or premeditated, I am going to speak about God with a capital G. So, remain if you please, but don't expect anything from me. Okay. God. What is God? Well, I was actually, it's not relevant to what I'm gonna talk. It is relevant, of course, but like, it's not exactly. Like, I could have spoke about this before I watched the beginning segment of Leo Gura's series on what is God. I watched the, like, 25 minutes of part 1, but that's not really, like, necessary, because I could have spoke about this before. So I won't be regurgitating what he said. So, God, yeah, so the only reason I thought of saying that is because I was gonna say, like, what is God? And Leo says God is a experience. And the reason I remembered that is because I was gonna say God is something that happens to you, in a way. Obviously, you can delude yourself into thinking that you experience God or meet God as an entity of like your religion or whatever the fuck. Like, technically God can mean different things for different people depending on what you define God as. However, when me and many people such as Leo, and if you know, you know, just the whole community, when we talk, like psychedelic people, when we talk about God, we're not talking about a fucking superior entity that like controls Earth from up above. That's not what I mean. And not even like some alien that's controlling it from another dimension or something like that. Like, because the thing is, like, what is the fabric of that entity that's controlling this fabric down here? If that's what you think God is, well, what is that? Did it create itself? How? Like who's controlling the god? Or why is there like two hierarchies, like this fundamental duality that you think like the nature of reality depends on a superior, like, godly being that is all knowing? Maybe you think there's going to be a judgment day, like you're going to die and then God's going to sit you down and go, now we're going to go through all your sins, and then you go to a physical heaven or a physical hell, and you know there's grapes there, and what was it? How many virgins? I can't remember. No, that's not God. So God is what I mean. So obviously you can call that God if you please, because language is ultimately a projection, just like everything else. Everything's a projection, I think. That's not, except God. Everything's a projection except God. But also, God can be a projection in some ways, I guess. I don't know, everything is a projection if it's all created by the mind. In terms of, basically, infinity just imagines infinity for infinity. Therefore, for there to be a thing, it must be a projection, because the substance of the frame that can contain infinity is empty. The nature of that must be emptiness, because if it was anything other than emptiness, it couldn't hold. I could go into a long ass analogy about that. I don't know if I want to. What Leo Gura said is like say like attachment is it's like a TV that's going through infinite channels. Imagine every single channel that could ever exist on a TV, or YouTube, or video format, two-dimensionally on a screen. Think about every single different video that could ever be taken. And the TV screen, aka consciousness, aka God, is flipping through every possibility forever. Because it's infinite exploration through infinite time, but not necessarily. Because time doesn't have to exist. I've experienced that in a lot of ways, time dilation, etc. But I mean, time does some, like, it's weird. I insist that time does not exist. It's just a thought construct that got many convinced. I hit the DNT and it all makes sense. How I experience eternity in this instance. Witnessing yourself, it's only you. Can't kill yourself cause it's only you. Can't scream for help cause it's only you. You are not the self that you think is you. I wrote that last bit, you know. The first bit was Illuminati Congo, his album Time Killers. It's an educational album, 1 hour long, that tells you absolute truths of reality. And this is what I mean, and when I'm talking about God, it's like, it's not a belief, that's the thing. People think that spirituality, and what I and many people pursue, although it is rare, around here at least, that's one of the main reasons why I made my channel, is to seek other beings of the same nature, as in the flesh around me there was none. And if it weren't for the internet and communication means like books, etc., I would have probably thought I was like mad in a sense. But you can't, like, I don't know, in a sense I might have, but it's because people know about it. That's the thing, is because you can have awakenings, psychedelic or not, or whatever, and then when you meet other people and you both talk about it and you're like, yeah, I know what you mean, that happened to me, then it's like, it's not a belief, it's something that fucking happens. So an awakening experience or enlightenment experience, etc., can also be experienced like God, as God. You could, so yeah, so like, although all labels are projections, when we say God, we are trying to talk about something, you know, we have to create some means of communication. But by God, I'll tell you what the best word for God is. Actually, the best way to describe God is what is reality? Well, obviously, no one can say, because it isn't words. It's not spiritual, that's just an idea. It's not material, that's also an idea. Reality is but it's not just sense perception. That's one level. There's so many different levels and facets to it. And a lot of it is conceptual, in a way, but not really. It's like an understanding that you convert into communication or language, just so you can hear it and like conceptually understand it. But the understanding is coming from direct sense perception, which is coming from the life force, which is God. Alright, let's just spitfire some shit. So, alright, so what is God? God is love. God is reality. God is now. Love is now. Love is reality. Consciousness is love. Love is God. God is I. God is I am. To be fair, God is literally consciousness. And consciousness is everything. Consciousness is the substance of everything. Consciousness is the substance of dreams that you have when you go to sleep, when your body goes to sleep, which it does. But it's all the same, like, substance. Oh yeah, this is what I was actually going to say. I remember now. Yeah, so it just becomes so apparent. Like, I swear, reality, obviously psychedelics and plants and things can and will likely influence the nature of it, but it can feel awfully slippy in a lot of ways. Like Terence McKenna says, like, people don't want to fuck with their minds because they know how fragile it is. So when you like go within, because the thing is, like, there's practices such as self-inquiry, for example. I done it the other day. I'd smoked some weed and I listened to a guided meditation about half an hour, and they ask you to like ask who is perceiving. So me right now, you're watching this video, you're listening to this. Who is listening to me? And you just keep asking yourself, you're like, who is aware of the thoughts? Who is aware of the sense perception? Who's aware of the colours? Who's aware of the sounds? Who's aware of the body? So who is perceiving the qualia? Qualia essentially means sense perception. And this is so something very fundamental in spirituality. When you say I am God, it's not an egotistical thing. It's actually funny when people interpret it like that, because it shows how like confused they are. They think, and it can be an egoic thing to be fair, and you can get it because you can have awakening, yeah, but it doesn't mean that everything that you say is like, or like you're not gonna act out of line. It's just like, because it's weird, man. There's some videos I want to watch. I haven't watched yet. I was seeing the titles, but it basically talks about how like losing motivation after awakening and behaving worse after awakening. It's quite a strange phenomenon in a way. I think you'd think it would kind of be the opposite, but it's crazy how much that your mind can change reality. Think about it, yeah. If someone called you, yeah, and they told you on the phone, it depends. Like, is it your mind or is it not? If you receive some devastating news over the phone, and then you, obviously everything changes, right? Is that your mind or not really? Kind of. But then, can your mind do that within anxiety and things? Like, this is what you got to understand about potential mental health. How strong is that? Because is that not the mind? Like, because if you were pissed up and you altered the mind, or if you were on some other compound, maybe psychedelics or a stimulant, etc., then you could interpret that in a massively different way. They change what you're willing to do. They dissolve boundaries. They dissolve, like, norms. I may have tried nitrous oxide not too long ago, which I do not recommend doing. Research a lot. You're playing games and Russian roulette with your health. It depends on how you use it, where it's from. Do research. I'm no expert, so don't take influence from me. It was very fun though, I can't lie. So I was very interested in taking it. And that's actually one of the things that stopped time for me. I was talking about time not existing earlier. So nitrous oxide for me. I also had smoked weed. We was at a crop circle, like a UFO geometric pattern in the ground. I don't know if that people that conspiracize it as a UFO, but I don't know. It could have been a human. There's just these large, intricate geometric patterns that appear in like wheat fields, etc. in the UK, like plants, fields, farms. And yeah. Anyway, I took some nitrous, and yeah, it's crazy. Everything like stretched around me. Time literally stops. There was one point where I was laughing, and everything was slowing down, and it was like my mate was talking to me, and he was like, it was all slow, and I could hear him, but like I couldn't care to understand what he was saying. It was just like crazy that he was even able to fucking speak. Like, I don't know, it was just, you can't believe it. Everything starts vibrating and fizzing, like with static. Something very interesting as well is the more I talk like this, I can feel my understanding and my direction of the day change. It's like I can hear myself talk in a new way. It's like a different way of thinking. And it helps, because it's like a contemplation that I don't do normally. So yeah. I don't remember if I was talking about whatever the fuck. But yeah, basically God is realization, self-realization. Oh yeah, so I was going to say one of the fundamental things, and this is what I'm talking about, how it's so fundamental, is that so there's teachings of no self, which is very interesting. I don't think no self is actually the best way to put it, but no, it is kind of true. That's what I was saying. Basically there isn't, you can exist without the perceiver, where consciousness is only holding external objects and qualia, aka sense perception. So it's basically, the universe could exist without a perceiver, without a self, especially in a heavy psychedelic or like breathwork states where like you could, or I've never done ketamine, but what I've heard about ketamine, I can imagine it can basically certain states that you can access by altering your physiology and doing certain like practices like meditation and self-inquiry. You can like kind of like pierce the veil of like, because for example, like on psychedelic mushrooms, if you look at the brain scan, normally it's like 10% interconnectedness between every cell, let's say, or every neuron. But when you're on a heavy dose of psilocybin magic mushrooms, the whole thing is like 100% interconnected. And when you think about that, even if you have a materialist paradigm that everything is physical, it's like, yeah, but what happens if you really like alter the brain like that? The way that you're going to perceive stuff, if you do have that kind of external, like, that's how much could you fuck with that, you know what I mean, if you fucked with the brain. And who's to say that it's not legit experience? Like, I understand, like, I mean, it's not that, for example, there was this, I used to be a bin man, and I met a guy who was like some super intellectual scientist and materialist kind of, and he kind of shut me down in a lot of ways, but I've evolved a lot since then. That was a long time ago now. And he basically said, like, the near-death experiences, he's like, yeah, that's just a dying brain. Like, the mystical experience, subjective experience, supposedly subjective. He's like, yeah, the fucking origin of that, the explanation of that is your brain is, you know, or, you know, you're dying, that's why you're fucking up. And same with the psychedelics, you know, you're putting loads of shit into your brain, and that's what's fucking it up, but you'd be surprised. Because when you're in there, that idea is funny. I think I'm running out of storage like now. That's how every one of my videos ends. But yeah. That's kind of how I like it to be. You're the dog, yeah, you probably think you know what I mean, but what I'm saying is they ever push me, I'm gonna swing. Yeah, I could go to college, get a job like everybody else. Graduate and get a job that doesn't pay the bills. That don't make a lot of sense to me. Forget the Happy Meals, I don't like the dollar menu, I would rather make a meal. Huh? Make a meal? No, I said make a meal. Home, cook and get the grill. How you want it? Pretty well?